Good evening, everyone. Before we begin, I'll ask everyone to please silence cell phones and or other electronic devices, and I'll just make sure I've done exactly that. And I will call this meeting to order at 6:32 p.m. by recognizing the traditional keepers of this land and specifically our neighbors of the Alderville First Nation with a formal territorial acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge that the municipality of Brighton is located on the Mississauga and Anishinaabe territory and is the traditional territory of the Mississauga. The Council of the Municipality of Brighton respectfully acknowledges that the Mississauga nations are the collective stewards and caretakers of these lands and waters in perpetuity, and that they continue to maintain this responsibility to ensure their health and integrity for generations to come. We'll move into the approval of the agenda with a motion moved by Deputy Mayor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Butwell. The Council approve the March 6, 2023 Council agenda as presented. Is there any discussion? All in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. And if I pause after I ask for the vote, it's only because there's a slight delay and I want to make sure I'm seeing Councillor Wright's vote, just for everyone's information. Members of Council, do you have any declarations of pecuniary interest? And if so, please state the general nature thereof. There are none noted. Are there any announcements this evening? There are none noted. Bring us to the adoption of the minutes with a motion moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Councillor Wheeldon, that Council adopt the February 21st, 2023 Council meeting minutes as presented. Is there any discussion? All in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. We have no statutory public meeting this evening, which brings us to delegations. Council will hear one delegation and one presentation this evening. Delegates have 10 minutes and presenters have 15 minutes to provide Council with their information. It is noted that language, content, and conduct must remain respectful at all times. Council will be provided with an opportunity to ask questions of clarification from the delegation and the presentation representatives based on the information that they have provided to Council. Council is reminded that this is not an opportunity to engage in debate with the delegate or presenter, nor to advance a public policy position. Delegates and presenters are reminded that Council does not make decisions during the delegation or presentation portion of tonight's meeting. Our first is a delegation from Bill Barber with regard to a traffic and pedestrian safety concern in the Pinnacle Street, North Singleton Street corridor, Tackaberry Ridge, Daniels, and Henderson. Mr. Barber. Mr. Moore.
I'm the sub, I guess.
So, Jim, I'll just get you to introduce yourself.
Okay,
please.
I was going to anyway. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, councillors, and staff. My name is Jim Moore, and along with fellow resident Bill Barber, we have come before you this evening to address traffic safety concerns in our neighborhood and request changes to traffic bylaws and traffic signage. Our neighborhood is the Pinnacle Street North, Singleton Street residential area in Northeast Brighton. This includes Thompson Crescent, Tackaberry Drive, Dunnett Drive, Harrier Run, Daniels Drive, Henderson Lane. There are presently 167 homes in this neighborhood. To begin, I'll paraphrase slightly from our email to Council on February 24th. Beginning back in 2010 and up until June 2022, many letters and emails have been exchanged between myself and various municipal politicians and staff members. This concerned the increased traffic due to the extension of Singleton Street to Pinnacle Street North and the subsequent residential development. My concerns included the need for increased pedestrian safety, including a reduction in posted vehicle speed, additional stop signs, crosswalks, and hopefully an extension of the designated community safety zone. Unfortunately, despite the communication back and forth, no action has been taken by municipal staff. A package of all this correspondence was given to Mr. Leslie Waitman on November 10th, when he and Mr. Alan McGee met with Bill Barber and myself on site to listen to our safety concerns and view the Pinnacle Street North and Singleton Street intersection. The extension of Singleton Street to Pinnacle during phase 1 of the Tackaberry Ridge development inadvertently created a shortcut for traffic to avoid the busy intersection at Main Street and at at Elizabeth Street. Now traffic passes right through the neighborhood, heading north or south, funneling right to and between the public school and the high school. This traffic often accesses the King Edward Park facilities, commercial outlets like the No Frills grocery store, the mobile gas station, Tim Hortons, and others, and often heads towards or returns from the city of Trenton. This is a busy neighborhood, being a walking route for children heading to school, for the Brighton Children's Center, for the Sunny Days group program, and for many residents, some of whom have special needs. It's also a school bus route for our local schools as well as the area Christian and Catholic high schools. In addition, the sidewalk on Pinnacle Street is on the east side of the street as far north as Singleton, and then switches to the west side north of Singleton. This means that pedestrians, including many children, have to cross a live intersection, usually diagonally straight across. This is why a four-way stop with painted stop blocks and crosswalks are needed to ensure the safety for these people. If you could look at the maps that I have attached, there are two. One is the present situation. Top map indicates the present 40-kilometer-per-hour traffic zones highlighted in yellow. Both Dundas Street and Highway 2 zones extend quite a distance east out from the downtown, and both Alice Street and Terry Fox are both 40 kilometers per hour. However, our entire neighborhood immediately north of Dundas is designated as a 50-kilometer-per-hour zone. This is where the residents live, where many children walk to school and play, but has all this increasingly busy traffic. The bottom map indicates the streets we are requesting to be rezoned to 40 kilometers per hour. Both Pinnacle Street North and Singleton Street, presently designated as feeder streets in the official plan, that's Schedule C, Map 2, are really at least collector streets and more likely to be arterial streets because they carry much more traffic than comes from our local neighborhood. The remaining neighborhood streets feed onto either Pinnacle Street or Singleton Street. As I mentioned, there are 167 homes in our neighborhood, but there are an additional 72 homes on Hope Street, up on Lakeview Heights and Castle Ridge that also feed traffic onto Singleton Street. There is no reason for vehicles to travel 50 kilometers per hour in any of these feeder streets. In addition, on those maps, the circles indicate that most of our neighborhood falls within an area of concern. The radius of that circle is the present extent of the community safety zone extending from the intersection of Pinnacle Street North and Dundas, where both schools are located. It would seem logical that Pinnacle Street North should be also designated as a community safety zone street, and possibly Singleton as well, because of the amount of pedestrian and vehicular traffic. Due to the input from many residents, Bill Barber and myself once again approached municipal staff back in November regarding the traffic safety in our neighborhood, and have invited staff to come out and see us on site. Their support of our recommendations and the overwhelming support of our residents has led to this delegation before you tonight. I'll pass the baton over to Bill now, but thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Moore.
Yes.
I said thank you.
Yep.
My name is Bill Barber. I live at 107 Pinnacle Street North. It's 3 houses north of the Pinnacle Singleton intersection. I just want to give I know we're on a 10-minute clock here. I just want to give a brief overview of some chronological events that have happened since Mr. Moore first started this project back in 2010. So this is when he first wrote on November 11th of 2010, he wrote a letter to Ken Herford and Jim Phillips in regards to his concerns, and he had no response. So between then and there was several more letters that went to Mayor Wallace at the time, which was passed on to staff. On November the 14th, 2011, Andrew Jaswiski, who was the Director of Public Works, wrote a letter, which we have here with us tonight, and which we gave to Leslie. He agreed with the posting of 40 kilometers an hour on Singleton and to investigate the stop signs. And of course, nothing became of that. Moving through 2016, there was some correspondence between Jim and the CAO, Bill Watson, which became no action by the municipality. Finally, in June, Jim wrote Mayor Ostrander with his concerns. Those concerns were brought to a letter of council on June 22nd of last year, and a resolution was passed, resolution 2022264, supporting Jim's letter. 4 days later, Jim got a letter from the municipal clerk referring Jim to the letter to the staff for the municipal traffic study and a black cat installation, which collects data for on a street. With any further questions, to be referred to John Gooding, the manager of infrastructure. So in October, I got involved and got a hold of Alan McGee and Leslie. We met on the 10th of June, the November the 10th, we met on site. And although we came to no consensus, they did look at it and say, yeah, there is probably some issues that the stop signs that are there are going to have to be moved because of sight lines. And Mr. McGee installed a black cat on Pinnacle Street, just north of Dundas. So that black cat, which I have just an overview of the black cat data, was put in for 5.5 days, and there was just short of 5,000 total vehicle movements in that 5.5 days. So almost 1,000 cars a day. Of those 1,000 vehicles, 2,176 were over 40 kilometers an hour. So that's 44% of the vehicle movement on Pinnacle Street North at Dunnet was over 40 kilometers an hour. 419 of them were over 50, 17 were over 60, and 14 were over 70. Moving on December the 19th, I met with Danny Beletsky and Gord Fletcher on site, and they immediately agreed with all our concerns that we had: stop signs, crosswalks, speed reduction, community safety zone posting, everything that we wanted. And his only concern, Danny's only concern, was whether or not all of these concerns were addressed in the subdivision plan. So I didn't know the answer to that, and that's outside of my scope of our scope of what we needed to know. So I'd asked him to forward my email to Paul Walsh, the director of planning. Danny also suggested that I meet with the Tackaberry Ridge developer, Len Kuipers, which I did on December 19th on site. And Len is well aware of the issues that are going on at the intersection, and he too also agreed with everything that we brought forward. Skipping ahead to January the 6th, I emailed the municipal clerk, Candace Dorian, to inquire on the status, scope, the terms, and the public input to the municipal traffic study. And much to my chagrin, she forwarded me an email back from several staff members, and it appears that as of January 6th or 7th, when I got the return, that the municipal traffic study does not exist. On February the 8th, I asked Danny to email me, and he to support our concerns, and I told him that we're meeting with Ron Anderson and several councillors. He emailed me back. So this was a month after I had emailed him the first time, and he emailed me supporting. I have the email. He said, "Sorry for the late reply. I received your message this morning, and yes, I do support the suggestions for the intersection crosswalks, repainting crosswalk installation of a four-way stop, we must make sure that the municipality is owner of the road and for our department to make any changes to the crosswalk. So whether or not the town has assumed responsibility for the Tackaberry Ridge or even that intersection, I'm not sure. That would be up to the planning. So in the month of February, we did meet with Deputy Mayor Ron Anderson on site, Councillor Emily Rowley, and we met on site with Councillor Ann Butwell to address our concerns. And on February the 24th, through the municipal website linked email addresses, I sent all of you a email with our concerns to give you background information for tonight's presentation. Last thing I just want to say is Jim and I did a petition through we did 167 houses, and you have the you should in front of you in your agenda have the results of that. 99.4% of our residents in our catchment area of that 400 meters in that neighborhood agreed with what we're looking at. I had one lady actually break down, cry in front of me. So what are we looking for? Well, immediately, or as expediently as possible, we would like staff to be directed to put a stop signs on the north and southbound of Pinnacle at Singleton to make that a four-way stop. We would like the speed limit reduced on Pinnacle Street North from Dundas Street north to Singleton, and then west across right out to Young Street. And that area, if possible, to be designated as a community safety zone. Whether or not the town has assumed Tackaberry Ridge, we would like 40 kilometers an hour in Tackaberry Ridge. There's no reason that a vehicle driving by no frills has to drive 40, but driving by my house in the residential area or anyone else's house here, they can drive 50. It's ridiculous. And a crosswalk at Pinnacle Street North and Singleton Street intersection. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barber. We appreciate your information, both you and Mr. Moore and the communities. Thank you. I'll open the floor to questions of clarification from members of council before I read the motion. Members of council, Councillor Wheeldon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you to the delegation. That was very thorough and professional. Regarding the assumption of the streets in Tackaberry Ridge, Mr. Walsh, are you able to comment on that?
Mayor to council, I'm not really sure what the status of the streets are in terms of their full assumption to date. There may be some phases that are and some that aren't.
Thank you. Does that make us unable to do what has been asked of us if it has not been assumed?
No, I think that the time of the subdivision review, there would have been a design with the intentions of what would be the normal speed. The speed is usually determined by default under Highway Traffic Act, and engineers design accordingly. And but it doesn't necessarily mean that there can't be some review and revisiting of that. There's nothing that would beholden us to a certain speed limit, other than the TAC manual with the Transportation Association of Canada sets out very specific standards that would, in terms of traffic counts and that sort of thing, that would then trigger what should be the posted speed. So design speed and posted speed are two different things. So that, you know, Singleton would be a design for probably a more higher speed than what we're hearing is acceptable, but that doesn't mean it can't be a different speed as posted. But there are some very clear direction in the TAC manual. Historically, there might have been some hesitation by staff to do something different without a full rigorous study in the context of a TAC manual. I don't know offhand if that's been done. And so it's that kind of analysis that would probably be needed for any lead up to a change in changes in speed limit. And of course, a bylaw. And that analysis would need to be in place to support any bylaws that were brought forward to council.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything, Councillor Butwell?
Yes, thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. Is there anything to preclude us from installing stop signs, Mr. Walsh? Anything that would limit us from having that ability just to, it stops the traffic, slows it down as a first step in the goal of safety, public safety?
Through the mayor to council, I'm aware that I'm starting to answer questions on traffic and infrastructure matters, and we do have the director of engineering here, Leslie Whiteman. If I may redirect that, I appreciate that. Thank you, Tony.
Mr. Whiteman? You're muted, Leslie.
I think Paul is correct. I don't think there has been a full study. We have been out there to look at some of the issues. There are some concerns, however, and I think they're legitimate concerns. We have had a black cat radar placement there, as mentioned. So I think everything has been laid out in the chronological order from the two gentlemen that have presented here tonight. It might require further study in moving forward. There are other spots in the municipality that I think we were intending to do further study of. And this would be one of those that would be a priority, I believe.
Thank you, Mr. Whiteman. Councillor Wheeldon?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am also aware of some of those other places, Mr. Whiteman. I've got some emails about them tonight. And I am also aware that we have been talking about a transportation master plan that is pending. I have a sense that if we start addressing traffic issues, we're not going to stop with or without a transportation master plan. So I'm wondering, when are we getting a transportation master plan? What kind of timeline is involved? I think that's a question for Mr. Walsh.
Mr. Whiteman?
We have to put together an RFP. We are probably going to do that by the end of this month and have a consultant on board and help us. First of all, we have to define the scope that we are looking at. In conjunction, I think, with some of the development that's also taking place in relation to the official plan and secondary plan. I think there are a number of other issues that I think should be integrated with planning and development, along with these other traffic considerations. To answer your question directly, RFP going out, I think, late March, April. And hopefully we can get some answers later fall, in terms of a completed study.
Councillor Rowley?
So that's a little bit of a concern when we're considering the safety of school children to get, and I understand the process. I mean, we need to do all of this, but are there temporary measures that we can at least kind of slow the traffic down, at least to get us through the school season?
So we're just asking questions of clarification of the delegation
Okay.
right now. The motion before me, which I haven't read, because we want to get through the
All right,
clarification questions.
I will reserve my comments for
Thank
the
you.
motion.
Appreciate that. Any other questions of clarification for the delegates? The motion before me is moved by Deputy Mayor Anderson and seconded by, oh, sorry, Councillor Wright, I apologize.
That's okay. I'm just doing my little dance up here. I just wanted to clarify on the recommended map. I just noticed that Hope Street hasn't been highlighted, and I just wondered why that one was left off of the recommendation.
Mr. Barber? Mr. Moore? Anyone?
I'll let Jim speak to that.
The reason Hope wasn't done or above was it wasn't immediately having access to Singleton, and it wasn't building up the traffic. If we go up the hill and up on top, the subdivision was still being built. It wasn't part of the Tackaberry Ridge. There are maybe 5 or 6 names on the survey that went out that were people who were on Hope Street who actually signed the petition. There's extra people, and somebody on Alice Street that's right in the corner as well. So the reason why we didn't put them on there, Bobby, was because it just would have made it a lot longer to get the process done. And quite frankly, we didn't want to hike up and down that hill too many more times. Well, Bill might have, but
Would it
you are
still be
right.
hope? Sorry, it's hard for me to see what's on.
Or I was just going to say that's the obvious thing to do next, would be for the streets to be added to the same zone. I mentioned that in my presentation, that the 72 homes up there's no reason for them to be doing that, especially the ones going down Hope Street. They could be allocated to 40 as well. That would be great.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you both. Questions of clarification? I'm going to read the motion. It's moved by Deputy Mayor Henderson, seconded by Councillor Butwell, that council receive the delegation from Bill Barber and Jim Moore regarding traffic and pedestrian safety in the Pinnacle Street North, Singleton Street Corridor, Tackaberry Ridge, Daniels and Henderson, and that council refer to staff for refer the information to staff for a report. Now I'll open the floor for discussion. Councillor Rowley.
I would like to re-ask my question. Are there temporary measures that we can put in place, at least to get the kids through the school year? It is a concern. There are a lot of kids there. The crosswalk, there is no crosswalk. It's diagonally jumping across. So I definitely see the concerns. And we'll leave that to Mr. Whiteman and his team, certainly. But is there something that we can temporarily put into place until we either get this transportation master plan completed and then follow up what's next?
Mr. Whiteman.
Yes, I think that the 2 stop signs that are currently, is it on Singleton? So that's going in an east-west direction. They could be brought closer to the intersection so that the site concerns can be addressed. That's number 1. Number 2, possibly we could put a small sidewalk, let's say sort of a receiving sidewalk on the northeast corner of Pinnacle and Singleton. And so as to encourage, motivate those to walk across there instead of going diagonally across that intersection, maybe with some sort of a crosswalk, and so to also encourage people to go in the proper direction as opposed to going diagonally. Those are some of the measures I think that could be taken and address some of the safety concerns for the moment.
Thank you both. Mr. Whiteman, how quickly could council expect a report back?
We do have the Black Cat information. I think by the next council session.
If we were to add by the first meeting of April, that adds an extra week even in there, and if
that would help. Yes.
I'm thinking we should add that to this report. I would like to see this move expeditiously along rather than waiting for many more months to pass by. So Deputy Mayor, Councillor Butwell, are you willing to allow by the first meeting in April to be added to this? The 27th is a meeting. I'm suggesting we give them the full month of March to get this done so that we would see this by the first meeting in April. That's my suggestion. But if you say the 27th of March, it's your motion.
Well, the sooner this, I think we're both in agreement, the sooner the better. And whatever's, what's that? Reasonable for the staff to come with a full report.
Give me a date.
Not just,
Give me a date. Thank you.
thank you. All right,
Yes, we do.
27.
So the motion now reads by March 27th, 2023. And you had a question or a comment, Councillor Butwell. You're good? Yeah. Anyone else on this motion, Deputy Mayor?
I'll just touch on this. I've been listening and Emily Rowley's absolutely right. We should be acting on this as soon as we can, as well as there's no reason why we can't set the speed limits. That's what council does, right? You can correct me if I'm wrong. To wait for more studies, not more studies, we haven't had a study. And this has been going on for 20 years. And this neighborhood is quite now getting quite dense with density coming from the top or from everywhere. If we don't take action pretty soon ourselves, we're just going to keep getting backed up and it fall through the cracks. And I think if it's a matter of some signs, some crosswalks, and the speed limit we can do, it might have to order some signs, but we should be taking the action. If a study is done later, they can look at it and say, but I'm a strong believer in keeping consistency on the speed limits in this community. If you look at this, what the great job you've done here. You're doing our work for us. That's great. Even adding Hope Street and adding the other streets, there's consistency and people will learn to perhaps drive at the speed limit for the municipality, not for the street. And be wondering, I didn't even know what the speed limit was on your street when I came to visit. I think a sign was knocked over. And anyhow, it's and I can see the growth patterns of things happening here and the traffic, and that's all going to come out in a formal traffic study. We're talking traffic movement as much as we're talking doing something about the speeds. And if there's other areas that we should probably be stepping it up there too. I'm not holding back on that either. So that we're not to do it tonight, and we're not going there tonight, but it's something that we should all learn from this. And we don't need 160 homes coming to talk to us every time we need to do something. I think we can see what needs to be done here, and for safety reasons. And it's the number one thing we hear about all the time, other than snow, speed. So maybe we can do something about it.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. The transportation master plan, just for everyone's edification, would only allow us to enhance traffic calming measures in this neighborhood, even if we do something additional too. So let's get staff to take a look at this. Let's through the TAC manual, figure out who owns what pieces of portions of the property, what we are permitted, what we aren't permitted to do. I think that will help inform council as to what our next steps are, and we can anticipate that report will come to council on March 27th, which is our next council meeting. Councillor Butwell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just through you to Director Whiteman. Thank you for the 27th. I realize that's a short timeline. We are speaking about the children in this neighborhood. I know that I pick my daughter up every single day on Pinnacle, and the speeds that I witness are very concerning to me as a parked vehicle at the south end. They're already hitting 40, 3 houses in from that stop sign. And so at least slowing them down, the stop sign, number one, and then build from there perhaps. But I thank you, because I realize the 27th is shorter than you would have liked.
Thank you, Councillor Wheeldon.
With recognition that we're going to be hearing about other people on other streets, is there any direction that we can give them about how best to have it addressed other than waiting for the eventual transportation master plan?
Well, I think that is the best way from a holistic perspective for the community to deal with it. But frankly, this community has done all the right things. They've gone through staff. They've asked staff for changes. Staff have, in some cases, gotten back to them. In some cases, staff weren't here long enough to get back to you. And we recognize that was a bit of a concern some terms ago. And but having hit their frustration level, they've come to council, and this is where the buck stops. So we'll ask for the report on this neighborhood. We'll get that report, and if other neighborhoods wish to do the same, as long as they've gone through, maybe not 20 years worth, but as long as they've gone through the process of asking staff for their, these considerations, then they should come to council if they're still not getting the level of satisfaction they're looking for.
Thank you,
That's
Mr. Mayor.
appropriate. You're welcome. Anything further from members of council? All those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. So ladies and gentlemen, you can expect a report from Director Whiteman to be received or seen by council on 27th of March. Thank you. Madam Clerk, our next presentation is from Ms. Price. Oh, there you are. I'm looking up here. I'm like, why isn't she on Zoom? Everybody comes on Zoom. No, push the bat. Yeah,
Push
there
the
you go.
button. There we go.
All right.
Excellent.
So Darla Price, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Will we be able to see? Yes. Excellent. So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak here this evening. My name is Darla Price. I am the Executive Director for the Northumberland Manufacturers Association. I am also a very proud resident of Brighton, Ontario. For those that don't know of the NMA, we are a non-for-profit organization physically located in Coburg. We represent approximately 50 manufacturers from across the county. We also represent approximately 45 what we call associate members who are businesses in our local supply chain. We are small and mighty in business for the past 19 years. So we are proud and excited to share with you that our board of directors have decided to create or have our focus and goals this year around community engagement. So we're excited to announce that our very first event to launch this initiative is called How It's Made, Northumberland's Manufacturers Open House. It's on April 22nd, and it's brought to you by our association and Northumberland County. Okay. So it is How It's Made. It's a one-day event where 2 manufacturers from select Northumberland towns will open their doors to share what is made in the county and how it's done. Our target audience is from ages 10 to 70 or more, of course, and this includes parents, youth, retirees, and job seekers. As mentioned, the purpose of this event is to engage our community, but it's specifically to share with you in real time the career opportunities, talk to you about our wages, talk to you about our skill sets and what's needed. We're looking to engage more of our mature community members. And when I say that, we have retirees and those semi-retired who have moved into our community over the past 5 years. They come with skill, they come with wealth. And we have found over the past 5 years, we have individuals who have come out to become mentors or to invest in startup business. And we would like to engage more of those individuals to take a part and see what we're doing in the community. We're looking to share our philanthropy, right? We want to talk about our corporate citizenship and what we give back directly to our local community itself. We want to remove the stigma of the industry. So I always give this as an example. It's not grandpa's shop anymore. It's not dirty, unsafe, insecure, low wage type work. We want to bring you in to see the innovation, to see the health and safety as priority number one, for you to meet our teams and show our youth and our parents and our general community the amazing opportunities that there are within our industry. And last but not least, we're looking to build an overall sense of pride for the industry because we want our community members to understand and to know that it's okay for a community to have a strong industrial base. We are here to share the tax burden. We are here to support community initiatives for a healthy and sustainable environment. And as one of the largest employers across the county, we are very, very proud of our people. We want to bring you inside to show you what we do each day, what we make every morning and afternoon. We want you to meet our teams, and we want to build some pride together and be proud of the industry as a whole. And of course, have some fun while we're doing it. Next slide, please. So those involved, we have 2 manufacturers within each town across the county. Now, while we don't have anything specifically located here in Brighton on the day of the event, we are asking our Brighton residents and friends to join us in Campbellford or Coburg. I promise it's worth the drive to Campbellford to see inside front line in the chocolate factory. And we encourage everybody to attend. The event date is Saturday, April 22nd. It runs from 10 till 2. There is a free barbecue within each community within a specific manufacturer. So in Campbellford, the free barbecue is located at Mermill, and in Coburg, it will be located at Venture 13. I just want to make a correction to the URL that is there. It has been updated since this presentation was created, and it is now howitsmadenorthumberland.ca. Excellent. So our ask of you this evening, we'd like you to share this event with your community. I want you to talk about it, invite your network. We'd like you to attend and network with the community. Because even though we're not going to be physically open and located in Brighton, to see your leadership at the other locations, it's about providing support for a community full county initiative. And we would like to see you there. Welcome guests. Be the meat connoisseur on the barbecue or the condiment manager, or we'd love for you to come out and join us for the day. We'd like access to your marketing department, so communications, to help us promote the event to your general population. So I know we've got social media, we've got the rec center to put flyers at, and so on. We'd love the opportunity to connect, to share. And we're open to ideas on how the town can be a part of the day, whether it's volunteers, display table, economic development. Yes, we're open to suggestions and ideas on how to be involved. And that is it. Nice, short and sweet. Really excited about the event. It is something that isn't seen or done quite often in our industry. It is to get the manufacturers to open their doors to let the general consumer in was quite the task, but we've done it. We're excited to bring everyone in, and we hope to see everybody there. Thank you.
Thank you,
Any
Ms.
questions?
Price. Appreciate the presentation. I'll open the floor to members of council for questions of clarification. Councillor Ferrettis.
To the chair, thank you. I'm keen to see Brighton participate, and I wonder to the chair, would it be possible for you to reach out to Mr. DeGroot at Premier Tech? I think it's a kind of a significant business venture in our community that is worthy of being part of this group.
I would be happy to, if that is something the NMA would like me to do. But I imagine you've got your, well, I'll let you speak to that, Ms. Price, if you don't mind.
We do have our core, yes. There is opportunity if Premier Tech is willing to move somewhat quickly. We've got lots of time to plan the internal stuff, but in regards to the marketing and whatnot, we would definitely be opening to hosting here in Brighton. At this time, we just do not have a manufacturer from Brighton as members. So I find our manufacturing community in Brighton is very close with our friends in Quinte. and the Belleville area. So that's where they find most of their resources and support, where I'd love the opportunity to have them involved more closely in Northumberland. So, okay,
So that-
excellent.
Let
me
you-
know.
You and I and Mr. Hagerman have a conversation about
Very
how
good.
to shake some loose fruit free, if you will.
That would be
Deputy
fantastic.
Mayor.
Thank you.
Was the Brighton tree shaken at all?
Always,
Was
all the
anyone
time.
asked in Brighton, any manufacturers?
Before COVID, we did do a bit of a campaign, but there wasn't an interest at that time.
I think we'll follow up. with that.
Councillor Wielden?
Thank you. You mentioned specifically ages 10 plus. My
Yes.
little guys are a little bit smaller than that. Would they be welcome?
They are not.
Okay.
I'm sorry, due to health and safety. It was kind of decided upon amongst the group because there is some manufacturers would be okay, but we have others. It's a health and safety concern.
That's fair. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions of clarification? Have you been in touch with our economic development manager, Ben Hagerman?
I have not yet. No, I thought
Do you
we'd
have his-
start here.
Yeah, you have his contact
I do,
information? Thank
yes.
you. Good.
Thank you.
So I have a motion moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Councillor Wielden, that council received the delegation from Darla Price, Executive Director for the Northumberland Manufacturers Association, also a proud resident of Brighton, regarding community event on April 22nd, 2023, called How It's Made Northumberland Manufacturers Open House. Is there any discussion on the motion? Although, go ahead, Councillor Rowley.
Is this a county supported initiative as well? Is this something that you deal with at the county level?
Yes, it is. They are our main presenting sponsor. Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything further from members of council? All in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. And I have made a note about a local manufacturer without naming names further. Thank you. Madam Clerk, are there any citizens' comments this evening? We have no staff reports, which brings us to the council follow-up list. The motion before me is moved by Councillor Butwell, seconded by Councillor Fredis, that council receive the council follow-up list as information. Questions or comments from members of council? Councillor Wielden?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wonder if we can get updates on any of these. The comment section is there.
Say that again.
I circulated, but the ones that they went in and cleaned up, they didn't put comments on the ones that were still active. So I didn't get any comments from staff yet. Hopefully for the next one for in April, hopefully you'll have some more comments.
Is there a specific item you're looking for a comment on?
Nothing in particular. I just some of the people responsible are in the room. I was wondering if there was any updates, or it's just is this just the list of things that are important but not urgent?
This is a list of things that have been brought to staff by council and or committees that are not necessarily on their work plans. Am I right with that? They're not necessarily on the work plans that have been provided through strategic direction from the CAO.
Yeah, this is the follow-up list from council meetings.
Right.
So when you pass a resolution or make a notice of motion or anything like that, this is the direction that I give to them, and it's put on the follow-up list.
Okay. Are we able to, is it appropriate to put timelines on some of these, or like we've got a follow-up list with no follow-up?
So it would only be appropriate if at the time of the motion there was a date selected, but at some point I think we may want to have a conversation about clearing up some of these items, because at some point this council is going to add to this list and we're going to want to make sure that the stuff from 2021 is dealt with.
Yes, that's what I was thinking as well.
So majority of the time with the follow-up list, I give it to the CAO. The CAO talks to the staff member that's responsible for the item, and then typically they will send me comments. I put the comments on, but right now we're just we're not there at this point, but it'll come hopefully for April.
Councillor Paredes.
To the chair, thank you. Just a point of clarification. I noticed number 8 refers to a stop sign, four-way stop or roundabout at Ragland and Ontario. But my recollection was the stop sign was rejected at a council meeting last August, and perhaps deferred to be incorporated into the traffic study that we're anticipating is forthcoming later this fall. Am I correct in that understanding?
That is correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
And so I guess I would ask that the staff people in this room, please be prepared to make comment for April so that we can clear up some of any of these things, because that would have been a simple comment, right? And dealt with through council direction with regard to the transportation master plan. I think that would have been done. Councillor Wright.
Question, why wouldn't these have been put on a work plan if council's directed it? I'm just not sure why these are just things that are hanging in the air the way they are.
So the simple answer to that is that the work plans are developed by the CAO from council's strategic direction through the strategic plan and or from budget meetings. This list is created by those one-off items at council meetings. So notices of motion or directions to staff at council meetings. So they don't incorporate, the work plans are incorporated as strategic initiatives, whereas these are sort of one-off items that appear at a council meeting.
So they're secondary to money that's already been planned. Is that the idea?
Sometimes they take priority over strategic items because they're the political hotbeds. So that is really the simple difference is the CAO provides work plans on an annualized basis to staff that staff are to work through, sometimes on a quarterly basis, sometimes to get done by the end of the year. Whereas these items are those that council brings as often political hot potatoes that need to be dealt with.
Okay, sorry, can I follow up?
Sure can.
Can we not then, like, if it's political hotbed, they need to be dealt with. Can we not like add timelines to them, even though these ones might be passed? Like, can we ask staff to bring dates to these things that are on this list currently so that we can kind of roll that ball forward more cleanly?
I think we can do that. And I think the message has probably been received that we're looking for answers or comments on these items, and that staff would then want to advise us if something can't be answered, when they will be able to answer it for us. And I'm getting some head nods. So if we don't see that in the April meeting, we can have a more robust discussion around timelines.
Okay, thank you.
I think that would be the fair thing to do, is let staff give us the timeline. And if A, we object to it, or B, we don't see it, then we can provide a little further council direction without an additional item on the follow-up list. Anything further from members of council? All those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. There are no notices of motion or motions to be read this evening. That brings us to unfinished business, which is an item from our committee structure appointments from the closed session of February 21st. It's moved by Councillor Paredes, seconded by Councillor Butwell, that council strike a strategic planning review team and appoint Councillor Jeff Wielden, Councillor Bobby Wright, and Mayor Brian Ostrander to the review team. Just for council's information, I have advised Director Walsh and Mr. Hagerman that I think they would be the best initial staff resources to start with that group of 3 from a staff perspective, from a staff resources perspective. We will of course be asking all members of the senior management team to engage in strategic planning, but from a resource point of view and a review point of view, those are the two staffers I've asked to join us whenever we kick off that first meeting. Any discussion on the motion? Councillor Rowley.
Thank you. Glad to see this getting started. Any idea how long it will take before council will sit down with everyone as far as strategic planning goes? Do you have a,
As soon as this team can meet, we will report out to council on what I hope will be a timeline and a plan for the plan, a plan for the plan. Okay. Anything further from members of council? All in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. Brings us to bylaw. Our first bylaw is with regard to medical funding agreement. It's moved by Councillor Fredis, seconded by Councillor Butwell. The council gives a bylaw its first, second, and third reading and finally passes on this date, being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and the clerk to execute an agreement between Dr. Peter Stride and the municipality of Brighton regarding a medical services funding agreement. Is there any discussion? All in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. Next bylaw is with regard to medical services funding agreement. This is a housekeeping item. It's moved by Councillor Wheeldon, seconded by Councillor Rowley. The council gives a bylaw its first, second, and third reading and finally passes on this date, being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and the clerk to execute an agreement between Dr. Getnet Azrat and the municipality of Brighton regarding a medical services funding agreement. Is there any discussion? Councillor Fredis.
Thank you, Chair. This was done in August, which is kind of before the time for a number of us. Can you just clarify where Dr. Azrat will be domiciled?
Dr. Azrat is the partner of Dr. Evans, so across the road on Dundas Street and at their clinic in Trenton.
Okay, but as I recall, the Dundas Street facility's still not occupied and it's been some time now. So this is still domiciled in Trenton.
That is correct. Okay. They are seeing Brighton patients in Trenton.
I understand. If I may just continue. My recollection, having gone back and read some of the history, is that the agreement with Dr. Evans was that he would take up occupancy within 3 months of the signing of the contract, and that was a year, perhaps a year and a half ago, which seems a little beyond the 3 months. Do we have any idea when he might honor his part of the commitment?
I believe the answer to that is 3 weeks. Deputy Mayor Anderson, I'm being facetious, sorry.
I haven't spoken to him lately, but the last he said was 3 weeks, and that I think it's aiming that way because you can see the amount of work that's been done in that facility on Dundas Street across the road here. So his plan, and he said this publicly, is to be there 3 days, 2 days a week, and Dr. Azrat will be there 2 days a week. There'll be doctors will be closed one day, but the office will be open. And Dr. Evans plans to be there all day Saturday to service folks that don't even have a doctor. And that's what he's been doing in Trenton just lately, because he's got his offices are finally done in Quinny West. And another thing he's done, he's helped bring 2 more doctors here, but he's also I think we're giving a little to get something. So there's a little bit of work going on behind the scenes here. He's also
Deputy Mayor, I'm just gonna back this up. This is very specific to Dr. Azrat's
yes,
medical services agreement. I appreciate the question and the want to open the Dundas Street. So I allowed it a little bit, but let's not go into too much muck and mire about what Dr. Evans' plans are.
But that's public.
Yep. And Dr. Evans can market those the way he deems fit. But my understanding from the Evans Azrat team is that they've had some serious difficulties getting contractors over in this building. And to date, we've seen some activity in the last couple of weeks, so we can anticipate that they will be ready to go soon. I don't know what soon looks like, though, in fairness. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor? Being none opposed, that motion's carried. Next bylaws with regard to interim tax levy for 2023. It's moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Councillor Wheeldon, that council gives a bylaw its first, second, and third reading and finally passes on this date. Being a bylaw to provide for an interim tax levy for 2023 and to provide for the payment of taxes and to provide for penalty and interest. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Being none opposed, that motion's carried. That brings us to reports of advisory committees of council, reports and minutes and council reports. The first is with regard to the committee of the whole meetings for January 11th, 17th, 30th, and February 8th, 15th, and 27th. It's moved by Councillor Butwell, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson. The council adopt the meeting minutes from the committee of the whole for the following dates: January 11th, 17th, and 30th of 2023, and February 8th, 15th, and 27th of 2023. Is there any discussion? Councillor Rowley.
Your Mayor, just for clarification, maybe for those who are interested, the 7.26% tax increase is not the blended rate, correct?
That is correct. Would you like to know the blended rate?
I have an idea what the blended rate is, but I'm sure that our Director of Finance would have a much better idea than I do.
Director Whitfield, do you have that information handy? It's in the 5.5% range.
I thought it was 5.58,
Yeah.
but could be wrong by a decimal or two.
Councillor Fredis, do you have an accurate number in your head? Your microphone.
To the chair, the number that I wrote down the last time we talked about this was 5.92.
9.2?
Yeah.
Okay. Any further questions on the motion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. And a recommendation from those minutes is moved by Deputy Mayor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Butwell, that council approve the recommendations from the February 27th Committee of the Whole to approve grant and aid requests, approval of the 2023 budget with a 7.26% tax increase, and to direct staff to proceed with statutory public process for March 27th for comments and to bring an approval bylaw to the April 3rd meeting. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion is carried. We have no reports or minutes of statutory committees, boards, or external agencies, which brings us to correspondence, direction items, endorsements, communications, and petitions. The first is from the Lower Trent Conservation Authority, requesting the appointment of Councillor Butwell to the Source Protection Authority, and it's moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Councillor Wheeldon, that Council of the Municipality of Brighton recommend that Councillor Ann Butwell be appointed to the Source Protection Authority. Is there any discussion? All in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. The next piece of correspondence comes from the County of Huron with regard to the call to action for review of the Cannabis Act. It's moved by Councillor Wheeldon, seconded by Councillor Rowley, that council support the recommendation from the County of Huron to advocate for improvements to the Cannabis Act and current legislation framework for cannabis in Canada. And further, that Council of the Municipality of Brighton send correspondence to Health Canada requesting consultation when implementing legislation on cannabis regulation, as there is a direct impact on municipal operations and sometimes non-compliance to municipal bylaws. And further, that Council of the Municipality of Brighton recommends the inclusion of a system of minimum distance separation to protect residential areas. Is there any discussion? Councillor Wheeldon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Having worked with the minimum distance separation with regard to cattle and things like that. Just want to point out that that minimum distance separation is also for the sake of residents nearby who have some expectation of avoiding agricultural smells. But it's also for the sake of protection for the farmers themselves who shouldn't have to put up with people's complaints all the time. So that protection goes both ways. And so I just wanted to frame that because it's not a matter of the municipality being for or against cannabis. It's about making sure that our producers are as protected as residents.
Fair comment. Thank you for them. Anything further from members of council? All those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. Next piece of correspondence comes from the town of Deep River regarding the Ontario School Board elections. The motion is moved by Deputy Mayor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Butwell. The council received the request from the town of Deep River regarding Ontario school boards to become responsible for conducting their own trustee elections, or at a minimum, municipalities be compensated by the school boards for overseeing such trustee elections. Discussion from members of council. I'm curious why we're not supporting it.
I'm curious.
Yeah.
I'm just curious what the public thinks of that.
I don't
We're
know.
telling the school board what to do, but that doesn't usually work very much.
We're not.
Oh.
What we're doing is we're asking the province of Ontario
Uh-huh.
to either compensate the local municipality for running the school board elections, or telling the province of Ontario to please make the school boards run their own elections because it costs us time and money. And because the school board elections are divested outside and around many municipalities. So for example, our trustee, you vote in Brighton for our trustee, but you also vote in Murray Ward of Quinny West for our trustee, and you also vote in portions of Cremmy Township for our trustee. So then somebody then has to compile all that data to find out who won that election. It makes a more difficult election process on an already difficult election process for our staff. So the question is, how come we have to run these elections for free? That's, I think, the question being asked. Councillor Ferreras.
Thank you. I was just trying to clarify the question. Did I understand you to say we weren't supporting it? Because
The word receive is underlined, so I'm asking why are we not supporting it? That's
I was going to ask the same question. I mean, if the province is or whoever's doing education tax and we're having to run their elections, I think we should be compensated. I'd like us to go beyond the receive part if we could.
Deputy Mayor, Councillor Wright.
I'd like to know, do we have a breakdown on what those costs are for our particular municipality?
I doubt we've done that analysis, Madam Clerk.
No, the information is just on our ballot, so we have to take in, just like we do for every candidate, regular candidate for our municipal election, the school board election, we take in the candidates and we put that on our ballot, and then we have to do all the processing and send that on to, where did we send it this time? Oh, to Coburg. Yeah, like we have to. Yeah, so each municipality, they designate one municipality in a certain area to look after that section of the school board. So it's a lot of work for the clerk and the clerk's department to look after the school board elections as well as our own candidates and our own election here at the municipality. So it's combined, yes, but it's separate in the same sense. So it's two separate elections that we're doing.
Sorry to continue. Would it be a relatively easy thing to kind of estimate, to take a look at? I'm all for asking them to pay for their own election. I'm just very curious because I don't think anybody's really considered it before.
Madam Clerk.
So we had 6, I believe. 6 candidates that was on our ballot. Right? So we pay for the ballot, we pay for all the election, we pay for the like council or the municipality, they pay for the election process for our municipal election. The school board doesn't contribute anything to that.
Right.
So the taxpayers are paying it that way, plus they're paying out to, you know, the school board taxes as well, right? So essentially, the school board doesn't pay for anything for this election.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I'm just wondering if, in looking at all the time spent on election, if it would be easy enough to sort of separate out the time that would have been spent on their side of the election.
It's done the
give-
same night, right? So it's hard to try to separate it. Maybe Linda might be able to.
Director Whitfield, do you have a answer to this question?
I'm sure if this was a resolution that was supported by municipalities across Ontario and the province was faced with that situation, probably the best way would be to look at the ballot and say if there's 6 from the school board and 16 from the municipality, you add up the 22 and you divide 6 into that, and that would be their percentage.
Right.
But I'm just presupposing that's what they would do.
Right. Does that help answer your question, Councillor Wright? I mean, the real answer to your question is we don't know.
Right. No, I know we don't have those numbers right now. I'm just trying to determine like how easy would it be. So if we had 6 names on the ballot and we had how many on our side, on the municipal side of it?
We have 12 candidates on the municipal ballot.
Candidates. Okay. And how much did the election cost? Do we know offhand?
Yeah, that was brought in an earlier report, but it was it was less than 50 grand.
Okay.
I
So
thi- I
probably somewhere around the 20,000.
I think the preference would be to say to the school board, run your own election. I think that would be everybody's preference because of the logistics involved in figuring out how many votes went to what candidate, what jurisdiction that candidate's in, and who's responsible for dealing with that particular candidate, especially given that not all the boards have the same jurisdiction. So
Right.
the public school board is, as you know, X, Y, and Z municipalities. The French Catholic school board has a large, you know, it's a boundary exercise that's it makes, I think, makes most people go cross-eyed. Deputy Mayor.
Well, I regret we went into the weeds on this, but we actually got some good information out of that. And I will change my my motion because I think if it has any good, we'll find out.
Yeah. So you're changing it
Change
to
it to
support the
support-
request
to support.
and Councillor Butwell as the second. Are you okay with that?
But I'm glad we had some discussion.
Members of council, the motion now receives the council support the request, et cetera, et cetera. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Councillor Butwell.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. It's too bad that we couldn't decide on a municipality by municipality basis, because it would be much simpler that way. It would be easy to say the municipality is expending resources to run your election for no cost, and put them on notice, like issuing a stop, all that whatnot. It's just too bad that we couldn't add that to the letter. Not that we can, but enter into a services agreement with them.
Councillor Paredes. You're good. Councillor Wright. You're good. Anything further from members of council? All those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. Brings us to a correspondence from the Brighton Garden Club with regard to the naming of a municipal flower. It's moved by Councillor Butwell, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson, that council support the recommendation from the Brighton Garden Club to assign the native flower. Oh, goodness. Now I'm wishing I'd practiced. Aquilegia canadensis, the common name being the wild columbine, as the municipal flower for Brighton. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. Our FYI correspondence contains one item. It's the updates from Northumberland County, February 21st to March 3rd. The motion is moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Councillor Wheeldon, that Council receive the February 21st to March 3rd, 2023 Northumberland County updates as information. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Being none opposed, that motion's carried. Brings us to question period. Is there anyone in the gallery who has a question with regard to an item on tonight's agenda? And nobody on Zoom for that purpose. So that will take us to our closed session motion. Before we go into closed session, we will take a 5-minute recess. Or would you like me to take it afterward? Doesn't matter. So we'll take a 5-minute recess and then read the motion.
I don't have a reconnection link.
The deputy clerk will send you a link for the closed session. Councilor
Thank
Wright. Thank you.